If you were around in Britain during the 1960s, you'll remember a very different motoring world. There were no supercars roaring through city centres, no hypercars costing more than most houses, and no social media full of people showing off the latest exotic motor. Back then, the cars people admired were different. Some were practical, some were stylish, some were fast enough to make your heart race. But all of them became part of British life. They filled our roads, sat proudly on driveways, and carried families through one of the most exciting decades Britain had ever seen. And long before supercars became the dream, these were the cars people talked about, the cars people wanted, the cars that ruled the roads. So tonight, let's take a proper trip back and look at 10 British cars that ruled the 1960s before supercars took over. And chances are, you'll remember more than a few of them. Number 1. The Mini. It's impossible to start anywhere else. When the Mini arrived in 1959, few people realized just how important it would become during the 1960s. Small, affordable, and unlike anything else on the road, the Mini made motoring accessible to millions. And somehow, despite its tiny size, it seemed capable of carrying an entire family, kids in the back, shopping squeezed into every available space, and somehow, it all worked. The Mini wasn't just a car, it became a symbol of Britain itself. Stylish, clever, and full of character. By the middle of the decade, it wasn't simply popular, it was everywhere. And for many people, it remains the defining British car of the 1960s. Number 2. The Ford Cortina. Here's a car that truly dominated British roads. The Ford Cortina became the family motor of choice for countless households, practical, dependable, affordable, everything people wanted. You saw Cortinas parked outside factories, schools, pubs, and football grounds. They were absolutely everywhere, and because they were so common, they became woven into everyday life. For many families, the Cortina was the first new car they ever owned, a proper motor that felt modern without breaking the bank. And even today, mention the word Cortina, and you'll instantly trigger memories for thousands of people. Number 3. The Jaguar Mk2. Now, this was something special. The Jaguar Mk2 wasn't just admired, it was respected. Beautiful styling, luxurious interior, and performance that genuinely impressed. Back in the 1960s, seeing a Jaguar Mk2 glide past turned heads. Immediately, doctors drove them, business owners wanted them, and ordinary drivers dreamed about them. The combination of speed and elegance made them feel almost untouchable. A proper British icon, and more than 60 years later, they still look magnificent. Number 4. The Morris Minor. The Morris Minor had already been around before the 1960s began, but during the decade, it remained one of Britain's most loved cars, and it's easy to understand why. Simple, friendly, reliable. The sort of car that became part of the family. You didn't buy a Morris Minor to impress anyone. You bought one because it worked. Day after day, year after year, it became their first proper motor. Even now, seeing one instantly brings a smile to people's faces. A cracking little car. Number 5. The Triumph Herald. Now here was a car with style. The Triumph Herald stood out from the crowd thanks to its distinctive design, plenty of chrome, sharp lines, and a touch of sophistication that it felt slightly more special than some everyday family cars. And that appealed to buyers. Owners loved the light steering and easy driving manners, while others simply admired the way it looked. Either way, the Herald became one of the most recognizable British cars of the decade. Number 6. The MG Biff. You dreamed of owning a sports car in the 1960s. Chances are the MGB was high on your list. affordable by sports car standards, stylish, fun to drive, and unmistakably British. The MGB captured the spirit of open-top motoring perfectly. Roof down, country roads ahead, radio playing, it represented freedom, and for thousands of drivers, it became the sports car dream that was actually achievable. That's why they're still so popular. Number 7. The Austin 1100. Now this was one of the most important family cars of the decade. The Austin 1100 offered something many rivals couldn't: space, comfort, and modern engineering. Families loved them. They were practical enough for everyday life, yet comfortable enough for longer journeys, and by the mid-1960s, they had become one of Britain's best-selling cars. Not glamorous, perhaps, but hugely important. The sort of car that quietly became part of everyday British life. Number 8. The Rover P5. Now here was a car that felt important. Big, comfortable, and incredibly respectable. The Rover P5 became the choice of politicians, executives, and successful professionals. If someone arrived in a Rover P5, people noticed everything about it felt solid. Doors closed with a satisfying thud. Seats felt like armchairs, and the ride was wonderfully smooth. Built like a tank, yet refined at the same time. A proper gentleman's motor. Number 9. The Ford Anglia. Few cars are as instantly recognizable as the Ford Anglia. That famous rear window sloping the wrong way made sure of that. The Anglia became hugely popular because it offered affordable motoring to ordinary families, reliable, economical, and easy to maintain. Many people learned to drive in one. Many more took family holidays in one. And countless owners remember spending weekends tinkering under the bonnet. Back then, that was all part of motoring life. Number 10. The Jaguar E-Type. Now, we've saved a very special one until last, because, for many people, this wasn't just the most beautiful British car of the 1960s. It was one of the most beautiful cars ever made. The Jaguar E-Type looked sensational. Long bonnet, elegant curves, performance to match. Even today, it turns heads wherever it goes. Back in the 1960s, it felt almost futuristic, the sort of car people stopped and stared at. Most drivers would never own one, but plenty dreamed about it, and that's exactly why it ruled the decade. The E-Type represented everything exciting about British motoring: style, performance, and ambition. Looking back now, it's remarkable just how much these cars shaped Britain during the 1960s. They weren't just vehicles, they became part of people's lives. Family holidays, first driving lessons, weekend trips, visits to relatives, all those little moments that become treasured memories. And perhaps that's why people still talk about them today. Not because they were perfect. Far from it. Some rusted, some leaked oil, some could be a bit of a nightmare to start on cold mornings. But they had character, real character. Modern cars may be faster, quieter, and more advanced, but many people would argue they're not nearly as memorable, because back then, every car seemed to have its own personality, its own sound, its own quirks, its own story, and somehow, that made them special. These weren't supercars. They didn't need to be. They were the cars that Britain lived with. The cars Britain loved. And the cars that ruled the roads long before supercars ever arrived. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Which of these 1960s British cars do you remember most? Did your family own one? Or was there another classic British motor that should have made the list? Go on, let me know in the comments. I always enjoy reading your memories, and there are always some fantastic stories shared here. And if this video brought back A few memories from the old days. Give it a like. It helps more people discover these stories and keeps Britain's motoring history alive. And if you fancy more journeys through Britain's past, don't forget to subscribe. There's plenty more classic cars, forgotten stories, and nostalgic trips down memory lane still to come. Because, before supercars became the dream, these were the cars Britain admired, the cars Britain trusted, and the cars that made the 1960s unforgettable.